Good day everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do the Tunisian Simple Stitch. In the previous Tunisian crochet tutorial, I showed you how to make the foundation chain and the foundation row. I will link the video down below in the show notes for you. So when doing Tunisian crochet, it is very helpful to understand the stitch anatomy and to know what the parts of the stitches is called, so that you know where to place your hook when working the stitches. So when you collect the stitches on your hook in the forward pass, these are the vertical bars that you've collected when we were doing the forward pass for the foundation row. So let me show you all these bars. So this will be your front vertical bar, also referred to as a front V bar. And then if you follow the stitch, this here at the back will be your back vertical bar, also referred to as the back V bar. And then we also have horizontal bars. The horizontal bars here is your top horizontal bar, your horizontal bottom bar, and then you also have a back bar, which is this one. And then just for a little bit more information, if you have to work in between your stitches, this is where you will place your hook. And then you also have your space here in the front, which is the space in between the two vertical bars, which is basically between the front vertical bar and the back vertical bar. Right, so in Tunisian crochet, all the loops and stitches is referred to as bars. Now remember, even in the first tutorial, the first loop on your hook is your first stitch. So to make a Tunisian simple stitch, you have to insert your hook underneath the front vertical bar, like that, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you put your hook underneath the front vertical bar, yarn over and pull up a loop. Put your hook underneath the front vertical bar, yarn over and pull up a loop. And we leave all of these just like in our previous forward pass. We leave all these loops on the hook, and because we are now collecting them to make our fabric. So you will just continue in this manner by putting your hook underneath the vertical bar, yarn over and pull up a loop. And you just continue in this manner until the second last stitch of your row. Right, so now for your last stitch of this row, if you remember in the previous tutorial, when we started the back pass, we first made a chain stitch. So if we look at this last stitch here, this is your front vertical bar, and then that stitch there or piece there is your back vertical bar, and this is a back bar. So if we look at it like a chain stitch, you will see that is the loop of the chain stitch. So this is basically your front loop, your back loop, and your back bar, like that. Right, so now to work our last stitch, we need to put our hook underneath the front vertical bar and under the back bar. So always go into the base of this chain that we made. So you must go underneath the front vertical bar and underneath that back bar, so that you have 2 loops on the hook for the stitch before you make the stitch. And then we yarn over and we pull up the last loop. And this manner of putting your hook underneath the front vertical bar and the back bar will create these neat V stitches here on the side, where you can work into again when you join maybe them together or whatever. So that will make your stitches be neat and uniform on the side. So always remember to put your hook underneath the front vertical bar and the back bar for your last stitch. Okay, so now we have collected all of the loops on our hook, and we are now ready to do the return pass. And this is done in the same manner as for the foundation row. So we are again going to yarn over and make a chain for the first stitch, and then we are just going to yarn over and pull through 2 to again interlock these loops with chain stitches. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we just keep doing that until we have only 1 loop left on our hook. Like that. Now we have reached the end of this row. We have done a forward pass where we collected all the stitches, and we have done a return pass where we've interlocked all of the stitches with chain stitches. And you don't have to worry about these spaces that you see here, because when you work your next row, let me show you. The moment you start working your next row, when you pull up your loop, you push these interlocked chain stitches down into the work, and that fills up these spaces nicely so that your fabric becomes a little more dense. So I'm just gonna work a row or 2 more, and then I'll be back to show you how to bind off. I just want to show you once more how to do your last stitch. And another tip that I can maybe give you is that when you do this chain stitch, when you put the last stitch, when you pick up the last stitch, you put it underneath the front vertical bar and your back bar, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then pinch this stitch a little bit when you are going to make your chain stitch. When you yarn over and make your chain stitch, just keep that tension there and not pull that loop too tight, because if you do that when you do your chain stitch, you will tighten up all of the stitches on this side of your fabric. It will tighten up and cause your fabric to be shorter on this side than it will be on this side, and that can make your fabric very uneven and make the piece of work look wonky. Alright, so now I'm at the beginning of the next row. Now when you are finished with your piece, you need to bind off the stitches, because we need to fill in the spaces and push down these chain stitches from the return pass of the previous row. So this is how I bind off my Tunisian Simple Stitch pieces. If you used another stitch type, you will most probably be working in pattern to bind off your work. So to bind off, as we call it, Tunisian Simple Stitch wise, you will just do as you do your Tunisian Simple Stitches. You put your hook underneath your front vertical bar, yarn over and pull up the loop. But instead of keeping your loops on the hook, you will just pull this loop through the stitch that was already on your hook like that, and you basically work a slip stitch. You will see that this pushes down the chain stitches that interlocked your previous row of loops and finishes off your fabric. And remember to also not pull too tight on this when you're doing this, so that you don't tighten up these chains too much, because you would most probably do a border or work your blocks together or something, and then you need to be able to get your hook into these stitches again. So just be mindful of that as well. And the last stitch we just do exactly the same. We put our hook underneath the front vertical bar and underneath the back bar, pull up the loop and pull it through. And that creates the end, the top end of your work. Just like this other sample that I have here, where you can see all of these V stitches that you can work into. So if you look at your finished work, at the bottom you should have nice V stitches where you can work into if you want to make a border, and then you also have them on the side, you have them at the top and on the side as well. So that is it for this tutorial. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, happy crafting!